So a couple of years ago, Vido, the founder of 42On, he did an interesting talk called 10 Ways to Break Your Ceph Cluster, and we thought it would be kind of fun, kind of interesting to share our findings and share our 5 more ways to break your Ceph cluster. Here we have the overview of the 5. We also included a bonus one. One of the ways to break your Ceph cluster is by over or underestimating your automation tool, whatever you are using. It doesn't really matter. We had 2 cases where something like this happened. One case, we had a script that was run in front of the automation, so automating the automation tool, and through all of that, some checks were missing, and it didn't check for the amount of monitors that was set, and it just didn't fill out that variable, overruled the existing configuration, applied it, said everything is okay, yes to all, and started removing the monitors. And this tool is also pretty thorough. So it also removed all the monitor databases and everything. There was no trace of them anywhere. Fortunately, we could recreate them by scraping the OSDs, and the customer didn't lose any data, but there was severe downtime, obviously. In a similar case, it was quite interesting in the early releases of Ceph Admin. We had somebody who also lost their monitors. This was a case of, well, a monitor just monitors the system, so I can just remove it and recreate them, not understanding the exact importance of the monitors. We found out that somebody was using Docker commands in the backend, and we was removing those, or did remove monitors when he saw some errors, and tried to recreate them. Fortunately, we found the original mon directories still hiding in the Docker directory, and we could recreate them. Also, no data lost, but availability was not great. Another one is the size is 2 was the previous one, but we kind of revised that to the min size is 1. We still recommend that in any case you always run with size is 3 if you value your data, or do something with the ratio coding. But we'd rather not see size is 2, and if we see size is 2, then please don't go with min size is 1. If you have a good case, then you will only have recovery and found, which is bad enough. In a bad case, you will just lose placement groups. We've had a couple of cases like this in the last 2 years that are just bad in every way. We also found a couple of interesting cases where people didn't complete the update. In the Ceph documentation, there's an update guide, but it's not specific to a release. It's a generic update guide. And especially with the upgrades to Nautilus and the Messenger version 2, yes, we saw that there was some discrepancies and some parts of the upgrade were never executed, and miraculously the cluster will survive for some time, but then it will break, and it will break badly for people, and it's very hard to troubleshoot if you don't know what you're looking for. So what you're looking for is something that looks like this, continuously for a long time. So and the solution is to finish the update, finish all the steps for updating to Nautilus or Octopus. I've seen a cluster that survived into Octopus with this. Then you have the completing an update too soon. With the enhanced security for 14.2.20, we had a customer that already set it to false, but didn't upgrade all the daemons. Not really big impact, just very annoying that his RGWs weren't getting connected. This one was also very interesting. We took a while to figure this one out. So we had a customer that was having problems with their RGW environment. And after a while, we saw that the IP addresses in the service map for the RGW service it showed 3 RGWs. And the customer said, I have 9 RGWs, and we saw the IP addresses in the map updating all the time. Now, what we then saw is that there were 9 RGW daemons running on the network, and they were all claiming to be only 3 of them. So they were all skipping and updating the IP address, and the load balancer in front of them was trying to restart the uploads, and it was a bit of a mess. They had a lot of filled up multipart uploads. It was not performing well, and they were actually already investing into new hardware. We fixed it by just having 9 names. That fixed the problem, and we scraped the cluster for orphaned objects. We have one bonus one, which is blindly trusting the PG autoscaler. So I think a lot of this has to do with Ceph becoming much easier to use. So we see much more installs, and you don't have to understand or know as much as you used to. But we've seen that clusters are installed with all the defaults, but they were reasonably large, and then they start ingesting data. And that's when the PG autoscaler comes in and says, right, now we need some more placement groups here. And then it starts splitting the placement groups, and then you start ingesting more data. And then it says, then you need some more placement groups. So, and this was a cluster that was in the almost a petabyte. So it was having misplaced data for a long time, especially because they made the mistake of not having any SSDs in the cluster at all. So we also looked at the original 10 that Guido did. I urge you all, if you haven't seen that one, also look at the original 10 ways to break your Ceph cluster. But from the original 10, there's number 6 that we don't no longer consider a way to break your Ceph cluster because it's been superseded by BlueStore. We don't use XFS that much anymore. There are also talks of removing file store entirely from Quincy, I believe. So this is the one that is fixed by BlueStore. I think there is work on the way to also improve the autoscaler. So that's also great. But most of them are still ways to break your Ceph cluster. That's it. Thank you very much for the time. And if there are any questions, please do so.
We have a very quiet audience today. Either that or people are having issues seeing the slides.
I have a question. It's Dan here.
Hey, Dan.
Yeah, hi. So we've luckily never had to restore mons from the OSDs. Like we've never
Yeah,
lost all our mons. I'm just curious if I know there is a documented procedure somewhere on the Ceph docs,
yeah,
I guess.
it
Is
works.
that what you followed? Does that
Yeah,
work? Does that still work?
yeah, that works.
Okay,
It
good to
takes a
know.
little, it takes a little time, but it works. So it copies the data of the database over to from the OSDs, adds it to the database. Then, um, so we were very lucky. This was a very young cluster, so there was not too much data to scrape. But I think if your cluster grows and your usage, you use it much longer, much more changes, then that process will also take much longer. We were fortunate enough that it was enough in production that you don't want to lose it, but not it was not an old cluster.
So with your supported deployments, do you have any backup strategy for the mons, or do you sort of rely on them not getting destroyed like that? And like, I guess because it's not really possible to back up the mons, is it?
Not really, no. No. Yeah, you can back them up, but the data is always you're always behind enough that it doesn't make sense. We've also seen I could have included that one too. We've seen that somebody had a virtual install and they had some interesting data to them on a virtual Ceph install. And somebody was updating, and then the updates didn't go very well, and he just rolled back the virtual machine, all different states. So those are the
Oh,
things that you can also encounter. Yeah, that was the sound I made as well. Oh. So yeah, there's no real backup strategy there. What we try to do is just monitor your mons very well, make sure that you have enough of them. Bet on maybe two different hardware vendors so that you are unlikely to encounter the same problem um, on all of the monitors. But yeah, that it's very hard to back them up. There's no you you should stop your entire cluster and not have anything move at all, and then you can. There's no way to restore.
thank you.
Right? Thanks for the question.